Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hot Takes Valorant Edition. We've got Zach back joining us again this week. And you might notice, those of you that are watching the video version, that I am representing Team Vitality today. Of course, the big news, we'll just jump straight in. And that's to even it out as well, because obviously, Zach, you had your Paper X jersey on last week, and we can't
hmm
we can't have bias only on one side, so I thought I'd chip in. Um, so we'll just jump straight into that news, I guess, or the big news about Vitality is that Sayf is back, and it doesn't like I mean in the lineup wise, it probably makes sense. Like I feel like it improves him if he's straight in, but then at the same time,
hmm
I don't think anyone, myself included, expected that. How surprised were you to see that pop up?
I think personally, seeing the news there, like you said, it was a bit unexpected, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Because Vitality, they had that really good kickoff performance, but then after that, they've been kind of struggling. Safe took a break. They signed like two rookies. And even though they haven't been doing too badly during stage two, I feel like, when you get to playoffs and assuming that you make it to champions, you do want to have that additional bit of veteran experience. Like, I mean, look at Paper X, sure. They brought in a rookie and Mindfreak was on the bench, but Mindfreak still had like that tangible impact coming in from the bench, which contributed towards their Toronto trophy. So even if Safe doesn't directly play as a sixth man, some games they might sub him in, some games they might not. I feel like just whatever value he brings as an IGL, as somebody who's been in EMEA for the last like several years with that veteran experience, I think that could like be a really huge asset to the team.
Yeah, for sure. I imagine it's because they've said as well that he'd be coming in as a flex. They said he wouldn't be the IGL, so Unfake's going to stay there. So you imagine it's going to be Kovac probably that they'd swap him out for. The timing of it is a bit funny because they could just lose their first playoff match and then that's it. He's back out
Yeah.
anyway. Um, so I would be like the way I see it is I imagine he's just going straight into the lineup. Or maybe they give it one map, and if they lose the first map, then maybe slot him in. Because also we don't know exactly who they'd be up against just yet anyway. I think it'd be,
Mhm.
if I'm right, I think it's either Navi or Giant X, which if Safe if Safe comes back in and Vitality kind of start looking like themselves a bit again, then I don't imagine either of those teams should be like not that they should like guarantee the win, but it's not like a crazy opponent that you don't think they've got a chance. Yeah, because also interesting
Well, I
how
mean, compared
oh, yeah,
to like Fnatic at least, yeah. Like if you're
exactly,
going
yeah.
like tier wise in terms of
I
EMEA,
mean,
I
if it's
agree
not
with you
Fnatic,
there. Yeah,
Liquid, or Heretics, then
yeah,
you're
pretty
happy
much
and
the Holy
you think you've
Trinity.
got a chance, right? So yeah, the interesting thing as well, because when when he did drop out, it was worded at the time like it was his decision due to like I can't remember exactly how they worded it, but just kind of like mental things, like just I don't know, maybe
hmm
whether it be burnout or just stress of being like, because he was like the leader of that super team, like he was the face of it, and when it wasn't going in the right direction, clearly like the onus was on him probably more than anybody else, probably even more than like coaching staff. Um, so you
hmm
think that all kind of got to him in the end, but then it says that yeah, after they had discussions with him, I think they were saying they just wanted a sub kind of going into playoffs. Wasn't even necessarily him specifically, but they talked to him and they said his drive was back and he's kind of ready to come back. So that's good, and it's kind of maybe like slightly echoes of last year when he was. I mean, last year he was on duelist specifically, but when it was
hmm
decided like, yeah, safe, you're not IGLing, just play, do your thing, and then at that point things turn around for Vitality as well. So you never know, we could see that again. Because also, I mean, it's crazy that we got to this point. Like, just when you think how hyped everything was at kickoff, and how that super team just hit the ground running so quickly, and it's easy to like to look in hindsight and maybe like rewrite history a bit. Like maybe it was a bit of a case of like maybe this their raw skill of the five players meant that while kind of all teams were still gelling and figuring things out, it didn't really matter so much even about fundamentals and that. Because I remember at the time as well, they talked like people asked about his IGLing style and I think it was like Durka saying how he was a bit more relaxed and let players do their own thing a bit more, which kind of you
hmm
could sound like a good thing, like he trusts the players, or you could kind of sometimes see it the other way of like maybe he just isn't. as
Not,
strong as
not
an
like managing
IGL.
enough things.
Yeah, he's not like a boaster that's got this crazy mind about the game that will just micromanage everything. Um, and yeah, maybe that's why things look so good at the start of the year. The other teams hadn't figured themselves out yet, and Vitality could just
Hmm.
use the like raw firepower to win. And as soon as everyone else started sorting themselves going into stage one, it just collapsed. And maybe that super team was not going to get to that level again. Yeah, it's just crazy the difference now. Like the expectation is Sayf comes in and maybe we could get a playoff run. When at the start of the season it was like this team could be the best in the world. Um, yeah, it's kind of nuts, really. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
even
that's quite an about switch. Just to add on, like to that point, right? Even when you looked at Masters Bangkok, I think Vitality were pretty much the clear favorite to go ahead and take it. So going from that to finishing in fourth place, it's kind of like it had to be disappointing for them. And from there, like you said, it's just been hit after hit after hit. And I think that at this point, Sayf coming in, it might be, I don't know if it's a bit too late because, like you said, they've qualified for playoffs. They've got a decent chance, but I feel like it could be one of those things like a Piperix thing where you got like your new rookies in, you've got like that backbone of experience. You could try to make something happen, but also I think that EMEA is also like a little bit of a different region, and I feel like if you don't have the reads or if you don't have the prep for a lot of these games, it could prove to be very decisive for the opponent team. So I feel like that's another reason why Safe slotting in here could be good because I think at this point he's been on the server for a while. He's played against all of these teams, so if there's anyone who's going to be able to adapt in the middle of a game or a middle of a map to be able to make a comeback happen or something, it's got to be him. I think at least for this team.
and even just like maybe take the pressure off like Durka and Les a bit because it's kind of felt like in the last few weeks like they just have for Vitality to have a chance, those two just have to play out their minds and just like carry everything. Um,
Yeah.
which at the same time would be up to the rest of the teammates to maybe step up a bit. I know Unfakes had like a couple of actual fragging IGL matches like he promised he would. Yeah, just someone else can come in and just be solid and like not someone that you're not worried about that you know they can come in and do the job. And yeah, kind of take the pressure off because it kind of did seem like yeah, it seemed like mentality wise things have been pretty bad on Vitality. Like it doesn't they have like looked visibly very stressed out at times, like when they show the player cams and things. And
Mhm.
yeah, again, it kind of all comes back to at the start of the season that expectation was massive, and even though maybe in everybody else's eyes it's shifted now and you don't expect that much of them, if you're like a champs winner less on the team and you expect to be on teams that can be pushing to win champs and you're struggling to make playoffs in EMEA, then no matter how the outside expectations might change, you will not be happy with that situation. And yeah, especially when he's like him and Dirk are still playing so well as well, it must be frustrating. Um, let's maybe jump the pond over to Pacific then. You mentioned PaperX there, and
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the right tab because I've lost it. And yeah, the one of the bigger, well, it's not. I suppose it's not really news yet, but the PatMen visa situation, I think is something that's a bit of a worry in the back of everyone's mind at the moment. No less
Oh God,
no less
yeah.
PaperX's mind. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not something like we know for sure is an issue. It's not like when you get to the tournament and then it's sadly
Well,
announced like 3 days before that someone can't go. But basically, it seems like there's going to be a struggle for PatMen to get his visa for Paris, or at the very least to get it without it impacting the final weekend of Pacific playoffs in Japan. So what's been said is that he does actually have his Japan visa, but while he's in the process of getting his visa to go to Paris, he can't leave the country. So if that hasn't come through by the time that PaperX needs to go to Japan, then he'll just basically have to sit it out.
which is in a few days.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
very far away. Um, which is a bit of a bummer,
It's
really.
it's it's it really is. I mean, also like I I think this is a very common issue in the Philippines because I think one of the VCT talents, Mika, talks a lot about it, and she's also from the Philippines, and it seems like in general there's like a very painful system for Filipino citizens to especially in esports, but in general as well, from my understanding, for those who want to go and get a visa and stuff. So it's like very time consuming. Appointments are like scattered. So yeah, hopefully things work out for PatMen. I think I saw like tweets by Alex. I think he was also asking in some conferences, like, yeah, if anyone knows anybody from the French embassy in Manila, please help us out here so we can get our boy. But yeah, I really do hope that he gets to come because I think PatMen, he's had one of the most successful rookie tournaments of all time, if you think about it. Like, dude joins the team for stage two, makes Toronto, and lifts the trophy. I don't think we ever had like a joining a franchise team to trophy pipeline happen any faster
Yeah,
than that one. So that's kind of special.
100%. And it's, I mean, it's like kind of, sadly ironic timing that they just let go of Mind Freak officially as well, and now they don't
Oh God, yeah.
actually have. I mean, if he was still sitting around and he, it's not like he's even gone somewhere else and they started playing immediately either, which is maybe like the more frustrating part. If they'd have just managed to keep hold of him a few more weeks, then it wouldn't be so
Maybe
much
they
of a
can just
worry.
get
You
him
could just
back.
slot him in. Yeah, I mean that's probably an option as well. To be fair, I don't know if there's like. I would have thought though there has to be some kind of roster lock time where they can't. Like, surely you can't just sign someone in the last week before playoffs in any kind of
Yeah,
normal
but I'm pretty
scenario.
sure. I'm pretty sure Riot has made like exceptions for this before. You know, it's kind of
Yeah,
funny. I was thinking about this because I don't know if you remember, but when the year started and VCT America started, Furia couldn't get their Brazilian roster over. And they basically had like Penny and a couple of other people play. And I think that was their only recorded win this year. That was the only recorded win they had with a full 5 substitute roster. Every time they played with their main roster, it did not go well. But Furia has 1 win this year, guys, and that is with their substitute roster. So who knows? We might be able to see like a surprise last minute substitute. I would kind of like it like the 11th hour Samaritan or something, somebody coming in. But for the record, I do hope PatMen gets to make it. But who
yeah,
knows
of course.
who we might see in place? His
Because
substitutions are kind of wild.
yeah, because I mean, it is frustrating when this kind of thing happens because there's not really a winning scenario. Because I've seen, and this is something that, like, as a long-time League fan, there's been the problems over there as well of Riot, like, just allowing some rules to just be kind of ignored in these sorts of situations. I mean, this kind of sub things, especially when there'll be a roster lock date and you agree who your subs are on that date, and then something happens after that date, and the teams maybe don't want to use their subs, or they like beg Riot, like, please just let me get this guy in for just this one match, and the the pattern is for Riot to allow it, which, for the sake of like competitive integrity, obviously isn't ideal. If there are rules, you can't just choose if and when
Mm.
you follow those rules. But then I mean, the issue is much
What's the point
more
of having rules?
exactly. But then you get that it's much more frustrating when there's a thing like this, like, especially in a like this is one of the regions that's actually got a bloody arena final, or like an actual final somewhere outside of like a 200-person studio. So it's great. We've actually got a thing.
Mm.
People can travel. All the fans can converge. Oh, and by the way, the best team don't actually have don't really have a proper roster because Alex is playing as the fifth man or something. Like, you obviously don't want to like
Oh
ruin the
God.
event and fuck it completely. But then, yeah, at the same time, all the teams are allowed to have had a sub anyway, and if they haven't got a sub that they actually think is worthy to play, then kind of the team's fault. But yeah, it's again, this kind of one is frustrating because it's not even something that's their fault at all as to why they can't play, or potentially can't play. It's just one of these annoying bureaucratic things
Yeah.
which we all love.
We hate bureaucracy and we hate visas on the side of the world. I can attest to that. So it's definitely a thing. But talking about also specifically, you gotta talk about how bonkers this whole
Yeah,
stage two was, right? In terms of performance. Like you had the expected goats, like you had Paper X being Paper X, basically flawless. They only lost like I think 1 game to Zeta division. And that was a surprise because Zeta had basically like no chance of qualifying, but they were just like, yeah, we're gonna run through it,
yeah,
we're gonna make our last hurrah look good, we're gonna take down Paper X. And yeah, all things considered, Paper X with I think one of the best records in the playoffs, they were flawless. I know I sound like I'm just glazing here, but the glaze is deserved in this case. So yeah, grand finalist, first grand finalist, ready to lift another trophy, blah blah blah. But what is really interesting for me, at least in this specific run, has been RRQ because this team, they looked so like shaky because they did exceptionally well in stage one. They bombed out at Toronto. They come back to stage two. It's like a bit back and forth. They barely make playoffs. They lose their first game. They're in that lower bracket, and they've got the gauntlet to get through. They've got 3 Korean teams in a row
Yeah.
that they got to get through, starting with Gen.G. Like, it's like that obstacle course that you run. You go to Gen.G and then you face off against DRX, and then you have a rematch against T1, and you have to win two out of the three to make it to champions in the first place. That is wild.
Yeah. It's crazy, and you're maybe even calling them shaky is being a bit kind. Like at Toronto, they were shit. Like they were pure shit. And yeah, they're suddenly back, and like you say, that run is nuts. Like maybe we'll come back to Gen.G especially as well, because like what the fuck is going on there? Yeah, Gen.G, DRX, T1. I mean, they are like fully back, and then Talon in the lower final, who obviously have been in good form themselves as well, but then
Mhm.
RRQ in form. I'd like, would you probably edge them as favourites against Talon? I think I would. It's just that the upper final against Paper X is Paper X's to lose probably no matter who they're against. But then if let's say RRQ get there, they were underdogs against Gen.G as well. So in stage one, I mean. So yeah, it's crazy. They're back.
Uh, this you mentioned underdogs. Like, this playoff game was wild because I don't know if you were watching, but RQ, they lose the first map. They're down 2-10, okay? And somehow they bring it back from 2-10 to win 13-11. Not even overtime. They win 13-11. And then they win map 3. That's how they take down Gen.G. And this comes after, like, Gen.G makes those roster changes. I mean, yeah, it sucks for them that they start off in the lower bracket, but all things considered, right? RQ had no business making that comeback happen. So I think that at that point, it's less of a question about how epic RRQ are and more of a question of what the hell happened to Gen.G between like kickoff and right now, because they do not look like the same team. I mean, they're literally
Yes.
not because they had some player changes and stuff, but
It's really weird. Gen.G's whole year is just so odd because they have had points where they look like could be like one of the world's best teams, and then they just have points where it just completely crumbles and shatters into a million pieces. I know last time we did an episode a couple of weeks ago was when they just had re-signed Lakia officially, and we kind of
Mhm.
wondered how he might fit in or if he's going to play or what. I don't think
He didn't even
yeah,
play.
he didn't play at all, and it's the whole thing's strange because and the theory crafting when he signed was that maybe okay he's not going to play, but it's because they're going to have him as the IGL next year because Munchkin's going to
Or a
military
coach or
service,
something.
and a lot of the question marks had maybe been around Munchkin anyway, and like in these like the fucking 10-2 comeback against them is like when things are going a bit
Mhm.
south. Munchkin doesn't have like the mental leadership to stop those collapses, and maybe we need a new IGL when he's gone. Well, he's come out and said now he isn't going straight to military service, so he will still be playing at the start of next year.
Around.
Um, oh, actually, to be fair, I'm not sure exactly. I don't know when his contract expires, if it's expiring this year anyway. So maybe it still could be the case that they're planning for next year to get luckier, and they'd maybe already decided that Munchkin won't be the IGL. Anyway, it's all just confusing. I just don't know really what to think of Gen.G and yeah, how things are headed. I'm just checking Munchkin's contract actually. It does expire this year. So does Lakia's.
Mm.
Lakia's contract was only for this year, and then they didn't use him. So God knows what's going on there.
Sad.
To be fair, maybe that's even just a thing that he's coming back. Maybe he knows he's ready to come back, but doesn't have a team, so they'll just let him sign and then sit in scrims or something. Maybe it's just kind of doing him a favor. Who knows? Um, so yeah, what
Mm.
that basically means is theory crafting anything for next year is kind of pointless because no one's under contract except for
Off season's always wild.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's only Foxy9 and Ash that will be under contract still for them. And that'd be kind of the same what they did last year, wasn't it? When like basically the whole team went to free agency and then they tried to re-sign half of them back.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a mess. You would probably think they'd look elsewhere aside from Munchkin for IGL, like for those reasons. That it just when they get to these crunch times, the collapses are happening, and you kind of just need them to ride a
Mhm.
wave and not have like any mental issues to actually be able to win something. And yeah, it looks like if that can't happen, then they're just going to collapse as soon as there's like a bit of a comeback against them, and it just just destroys everything
Mhm.
really. Yeah, that's crazy.
I think crazy is a good way to describe like most of the Pacific this time. But I think, yeah, just to recap with Pacific, you've got like 3 out of the 4 champion spots locked. I think this is the most
Yeah,
locked in region, so as to
out.
speak,
Yeah,
with 3
massively.
of them already like decided. Yeah, you got Paper X, you got RRQ, and you've got T1 who've already made it. And I think the last slot it's gonna be between Talon and DRX. So, you were talking about that lower final, how RRQ has a slightly better chance. Well, Talon have got to win this one because if they don't, they're not gonna qualify. It is just gonna be DRX sneaking in instead, despite them not making it to the top 4 or anything. So I think, yeah, long-term consistency kind of paying off for these teams there. But either way, the fact that the top 3 for Pacific, there is not a single Korean team in there is insane. I know you were writing about it as well, but just to switch up from having the top 3 being all Korean during
Yeah,
kickoff to not having a single one during like this one, it's just insane how the years like progressed.
yeah, and it has been. I mean, oh, not even aside from Paper X. Yeah, it's mad. Like no one team has just been consistently good the whole year in Pacific. It's kind of bonkers. Um, like bloody boom. Isn't it like 5-0 to 0-5 from from stage one or from stage one groups to stage two groups? And I know that was like maybe them riding a bit of a wave before, but yeah, it's totally nuts. Um, shall we maybe move to another region then? Let's go
Yeah.
more east. We go more east, north, up around the globe to the Americas. To some news that's maybe a bit disputed. We don't. It's hard to say how much of this is true yet. But basically, there was a report from a Brazilian. I'd not heard of it. It's called. I don't know how I'm should be pronouncing it. Actualizado. I'm inclined to say it in like a Spanish way, as a poor Spanish speaker, but I'm sure that would be incorrect anyway. Um, so yeah, this is. I think it's a Twitter page that's like kind of like an. I don't know if it's an aggregator. It's like a news page in Brazilian around Valorant stuff.
Mhm.
But they broke some news that um, they were aware of rumors that for 2027, so this isn't next year. This would be the year after. Um, basically, where the initial kind of round of or the initial era, I don't know what you'd call it exactly, of VCT partnership. The initial cycle. There was a 4-year cycle. 2026 is the 4th year, and after that, it's basically when
Mhm.
Riot are kind of more free to make changes, kind of renew partnerships,
Kick
and
partner teams.
yes, get rid of the ones that
I'm
they.
I'm just a hater. I've got some teams I want to be kicked, so yeah.
Who do you want out then?
Anybody who hasn't managed to win a single VCT game in the course of their team history, or anyone who's won like less than 2 games on average per year. I'm pretty sure you can do the math from there. That's about it.
Fair enough. I'm sure you wouldn't be alone
I'm
either.
not naming names, but if you've been watching, you know who I'm talking about.
Yep, I think it's
Multi-regional. This is multi-regional, by the way.
sure.
There's one
Um,
in every region at this point.
more or less. But yeah, so basically in 2027, Riot can make kind of bigger changes rather than just maybe like formats and things. Like actual sweeping changes are possible. And the rumor that's come out of Brazil is that the Americas is going to be split, and basically a new league will be made for the Brazilian and South American teams. There would be a number of reasons behind that, which were kind of known as issues already anyway. I think firstly, there's the fact that all of like if you're a Brazilian
Hashtag
team,
visa.
yeah, if you're a Brazilian team with like millions of fans, like loads of them have, and they've got these crazy fan bases, but all of your games are 1,000 miles away in LA, it's hard to engage your fans or to get them to even just arrange any kind of events where your fans can see the players live or interact in person at all. That's obviously incredibly
Mhm.
difficult because your team has to be based in LA and it's literally in a different continent. So that's an obvious issue. I think another thing would probably be like costs in general. Like LA is not a cheap place to run any kind of business, let alone like an entertainment focused one. If you're a team that has to make content,
Mhm.
prices for literally anything media wise is like crazy in LA because obviously it's where Hollywood is and they've got crazy strong unions and everything. So there's just a large number of reasons why if you're a Brazilian team or a Latin American team, it just wouldn't make sense to have your team outside of your own continent, let alone in LA. LA is like, of anywhere in North America, that's probably the most difficult place to have it. And you wouldn't have it there in a million years unless there was a reason why you were forced to, which obviously currently there is. So that's the
Which
kind
is
of
the
the thought.
case,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the thought that this league will be created so that the teams can just have their own league in South America, and that solves all their issues. And now, obviously, there'd be like loads of implications around that. Obviously, Americas would need new teams, and there's no kind of mention of anything like that in the report. And obviously, there'd be things to figure out in terms of global events and how many teams they'd qualify and all that. But that's kind of what worries for later, I suppose. And yeah, part of the report is that that there are a few teams already kind of posturing to get in Riot's good books. So it was kind of two things. So there'd be this new league, but also there was going to be kind of increased investment, I think, in the Brazilian challengers, or at least that like Riot was kind of talking to teams to ask them kind of what things that they'd like, what things do they need for help in the challengers scene there. And yeah, part of it was that a few of these challengers teams already have been trying to kind of invest substantially to show Riot that they're serious about Valorant, so they can get in this new league. So this isn't even totally just reports about maybe this is going to happen in the future. There's part of this report was that these teams are trying to posture already to get in. That was Red Canids, Loss, and Team Solid were the three mentioned. And yeah, they're of the current partners as well in the Americas. 5 of them could potentially go to this new league as well. So it's interesting stuff there. That there's one thing that it mentioned in there, and this could just be maybe I'm reading too much into it, but one thing it said in the report as well, and this is also translated, so maybe like the exact word, maybe they use it slightly differently in Portuguese. I don't know. It did mention it would follow a franchise model. It says franchise model with fixed participants, and the word that was used for franchise, I tried as best I could to like put it through translators. It always came out as franchise specifically. And to be fair, I know like in VCT in general, a lot of people just call it franchising. So maybe it's just a side effect of that. But and this is also coming as like a league person, that to me, like the difference of hearing franchising versus like the partnership model is a big difference. Because in league we had the franchising where the teams had to buy in, they paid shitloads of money, and they do get these fixed slots. It's not kind of like VCT where it's a partner and Riot can choose to kick you out of the partnership really easily because you haven't paid to be a part of it. So when I see that it's going to be a franchised model, and they even said a franchise model like what is used in League of Legends in Brazil, like in their South American league, which was actually franchising, that kind of took my eye a bit as well. But again, I don't know if maybe I'm just reading too much into that, and it's just how everyone calls VCT franchising anyway, even though it's not really franchising. So that was one thing that, because I didn't see anyone really react to that part either. So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too worried as someone with PTSD from franchising in League. But also, kind of comparing it to League of Legends, it's quite funny how you've got the Americas that the rumor is to split it into 2 regions, whereas in League of Legends they tried to combine the 2, and it was a complete and utter disaster. But and it's not.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's not totally the same. Basically, just the way they did it, like they almost couldn't have done it worse. So they took the North American League, which was the LCS, and then you had the Brazilian League, which was CBLOL, and Latin American League, which was LLA. They firstly killed off the LLA, that just doesn't exist in any form, and then you've got the Brazilian League and the North American League that they both renamed to League of the Americas North and League of the Americas South, with the intention that they will kind of have their separate leagues, but then they'll come together maybe in like playoffs and do like a cross-regional thing. But then also they actually only play cross-regionally like once per year, and it ended up being like 2 games because the North American teams just knocked out the South American team straight away. So all they did was kind of kill off these old brands that everybody knew, made these new brands that nobody knows, that don't actually play against each other, and then the viewership tanked. So that's the whole thing. But from for people that are fans of or were fans of League of Legends esports in NA or in South America, to have seen your region kind of killed off by the merger, and then see and then maybe see VCT get it split up so they get their own leagues that's more personalized. I can imagine how that could be frustrating, because it also kind of felt like
Have
the
you
League one happened kind of as a result of the Americas. Like Riot kind of figured out maybe this is the better model to combine them, so we can start off in VCT with this model, and League of Legends we've kind of got to change it later, which is much more of a headache because we've got the franchising, all the teams paid in already, and it's much more, much more tricky. But just, I mean, I'm just kind
it's
of
have you
monologuing right now. What do you think of the actual news? What would you think of seeing this split?
before I like talk about the news, have you seen that meme of like mom like taking care of a kid in the water, and there's this kid drowning, and then
Yeah,
there's like just a skeleton in the bottom of the pool. Yeah, that's kind of just what this whole situation like reminded me of. But yeah, I think about the whole thing, I think it makes a lot of logistical sense to have a separate league for South America, because I think that even though Americas as a region, they've combined it for now. Like you said, the fan bases are very split, and honestly, with the if you want to bring in a little bit of geopolitics here, the way that the U.S. government is going, it is not a very conducive place to get visas, and especially I think for esports and stuff, moving and being in that kind of situation, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult as time goes on, unless of course things get better. I'm just a pessimist here, but yeah, in terms of operational costs, that as well. But I think mainly it will be the fan base and the visa issues that will be a benefit. That said, I would also have to kind of like be a little bit concerned about the competitive part, because yeah, okay, you could, have like two separate leagues with 10 teams each, with the slot coming from each for masters or champions, which in case will not affect the overall international seeding or whatever, but then you won't have these Americas teams playing against each other unless you have like a mid-season tournament or something. So it leads to a lot of questions about like what the tournament format is going to look like, what the seating is going to look like for international events, how like it's gonna be the case, because again, like you have the same problem where in Americas, at least for the last couple of years, unfortunately, I feel like as after Loud and 2022, it's been a little bit difficult for the LATAM and the Brazilian teams to kind of pop off. Like we keep hearing about these super teams. Like I was super excited for Lev last year, and when MIBR signed Aspas, I was excited for that too. But in terms of performance, at least there's always been a little bit of a hit or miss. So I feel like, yeah, if you're gonna be separating the regions, it's gonna lead to an even bigger dip in the level of competitiveness between two teams. So I think these are a lot of things that you have to be concerned about. I personally wouldn't worry too much about it right now, because until people say it's happening, it's probably not going to happen. It's just so much work to create a league. Like we've seen
yeah,
how much time it took to make the VCT. So yeah, I mean, if it happens, I think it's good for LATAM and Brazil in particular, because like you said, that fan base will be wilding over there. So
yeah. 'Cause that's another
that's
thing as
something
well.
definitely good.
Even just logistically, like engaging the fans, obviously would be difficult. But not that's just culturally. It's so like it's such a difference. Like especially Brazil, you kind of have this um like you have it kind of as uh, a thing of like from the football culture really, like
Mhm.
taking esports in that direction of like these crazy passionate fans. Um, whereas I feel like in NA it's more of like a streamer influencer culture um in their esports in their esports culture, I guess. Whereas in like Brazil, I think it's kind of a bit of a combination of the two. Yeah, you say about it being obviously unconfirmed so far, and there was a bit of a response from Leo Faria, um, denying it, but I found
Didn't
it
he deny it?
he he's denied the report. Let me show you, or I know you can't see my screen, but let me explain. Um,
I think you wrote a report. Yeah,
so
I got it up in the way.
yeah, I've got the tweets because I noticed something else on Twitter as well, a follow up to his follow up. But basically, it was one of these like Valorant aggregator pages did a tweet of the news, just kind of saying, and it's interesting. He replied to this. He didn't reply to the original report. So Valorant News or Valorant Intel made a tweet saying Riot Games reportedly aims to create a franchise league in South America. It would happen after 2026. It would break up the Americas to allow South American teams to participate. And it says Riot has been in contact with Tier 2 orgs to try and understand operating costs of rosters and infrastructure, and the goal is to strengthen the competitive foundation of Valorant in Brazil. Leo Faria replied to that tweet. He said, "This is top of mind for us and changes are coming in 2027 to address it, but this report is false." Now it's interesting he replied to that. He didn't reply to the original report. So if we're going to just take what he said purely literally, it could mean a number of things. It could be that this aggregation of the report is slightly incorrect, and he's saying that this report is incorrect. It could be that he's saying the original report from the Brazilian
As
outlet.
partially correct things.
Yeah, exactly. It could literally be that any one part of it is incorrect, and that would make the report incorrect. Where they say about like these 3 teams are already posturing, that could be the incorrect part, and it could still be happening. Like I feel like this doesn't confirm that this stuff is not going to happen, or that there's not talks about happening. 'Cause that's also something we're bearing in mind as well. The original report didn't say this is a guarantee. It said like this is something Riot is considering at the moment.
Yeah, I think for what it's worth there, I would not trust this by any means. That especially the part about like tier 2, because look, I think that over the last few years, I like Valorant a lot as a game, but I have a lot of fucking problems with how tier 2 is treated, and it's just been very abysmal, the deterioration over the last few years. And it's not just one region, right? It's happening in Americas, it's happening in EMEA. So you can see like just the level of resources that VCLs and challenger leagues are getting. It's just going down bit by bit, which ultimately like harms the VCT as well. So I think that I've been seeing tweets for the last few years about like, yeah, how challengers needs help, challengers needs resources, tier 2 needs like some kind of shot in the arm to bolster it, because right now at least operational costs are absolutely devastating. Like you can see it year on year, like organizations just dropping out of tier 2, irrespective of whatever the region is. I feel like probably the region that has the most teams operating, like signed orgs operating right now is Pacific, and that's just because operation costs are like marginally cheaper. And I think that's like a big problem. So I think Leo and Riot have been saying like, yeah, we're gonna address this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, but there hasn't really been too much of an impact in that direction. So I that part at least I'm very skeptical about, because I'm used to seeing him say like, yeah, we're looking into this, it's top of our mind, we're gonna do this. But until it actually happens, yeah, I'm not biting. I'm just a cynic at this point.
Well, to be fair, that was like a lot of the criticism around the match fixing stuff as well, which I know like Riot has said that
Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing found. Maybe we could touch on that later as well, because I think I think there was updates on that as well. But yeah, like, I mean, a lot of people at the time when that first was coming out about the allegations was like, oh well, there's no money in tier 2, the players can't afford to make a living, blah blah blah. Although I think in that case, my thinking at the time was that actually, even if it was a better ecosystem, I think in terms of match fixing, it probably wouldn't help, because I feel like it would just go to the next level down anyway, because then you'd have, right, tier 2
Yeah.
is professional,
Trickle
and
down.
now tier 3 becomes, or there's some tier 3 system suddenly appears where is the breeding grounds for the people trying to go pro, and you basically have the same issues then, that you have to spend your life playing, but you can't afford it, and blah blah blah. But yeah, just going back to Leo Faria's tweet then, Actualizado, the outlet that reported it, they replied to his tweet with just a picture, a little screenshot of showing that they've bookmarked his tweet, which was a very interesting response. Obviously, it's saying stuff without saying stuff. The implication, as I took it, would be that like they're saying we're gonna save this tweet that you've made to come back to it when the news is confirmed to be true. Like that's how I took this. Like, let's remember that you said this and then come back to it later. So that's interesting, and to be fair, I saw that after I'd kind of wondered about which parts of the report he was saying was false anyway, because that was kind of my initial thinking, was that there probably is truth to a lot of this, but maybe 1 or 2 things are inaccurate, and that does give him the easy out to just say the report is false. So yeah, it's a bit interesting, spicy stuff. But then it's annoying because this is a mini drama that we're not going to know the outcome of probably for like another 12 months, and by that time we'll have forgotten about it as well. But there we go. Um, let me check what else we had. 'Cause I think those are the only things I had visuals ready, but there was a few more things we could talk about. Oh yeah.
I mean, we could.
Go on.
I was just gonna say like about the match fixing thing. I think that there's also like a lot of very sus things, like not match fixing, betting, people throwing. There's like a whole pipeline. I think Sean Gears made a video about it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I agree. Some of his claims were a little bit superfluous. Like there wasn't like clear backing for the allegations, and I mean, yes, it was a bit suspicious, but it could have also been pretty coincidental. But I think that there has been a lot of complaints by professional players as well who are like, yeah, I queue ranked, and there's just me. If I'm streaming, there's like people stream sniping me and like throwing my games. There's like people who literally wait to queue into my own games and throw them. So there's like a lot of issues around this kind of thing that people have been talking about for a while. So I think that, yeah, definitely the points that you made about tier two needing help to kind of alleviate this kind of thing is pretty legitimate as well. But I think it's also like you said, the investigation. It's like, yeah, oh, we have problems. We're just gonna investigate ourselves and release a press note with vague details that says, oh yeah, we investigated ourselves and cleared ourselves. Therefore, we're innocent. That just seems a little bit sus to me, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think it was I think it was on our league episode that we talked about the investigation closing. So I'm just gonna try and remember what I'd said because yeah, this is one of the things as well when they so this is like a bit of a tinfoil hat thing. But when part of those cheating, like there was really Sean Gare's thing was two parts. It was match fixing and cheating. Like really, they're two totally different things. And he even had, I mean, the main player I think was Bob. That was one that he kind of alleged had done both, as, both on Blue Water. And with the cheating part, like that bit is way more extreme. Like match fixing, I feel like a player can easily do that without getting caught. Like if you do it, you agree it over calls. You just throw a couple of rounds by playing a bit shit, and you can always have plausible deniability on that. So even if that's
Mhm.
been happening, I'm not surprised whatsoever that Riot would have found nothing on that. That seems totally understandable. Like the Counter-Strike I Buy Power thing from like a decade ago, that was like the
Oh
biggest
yeah.
one that got found. That took 6 months for somebody to get found out, and it was only because someone involved broke up with their girlfriend, and their girlfriend leaks messages of him admitting that he made the bets for that team, that was
Mhm.
like betting against themselves. So, yeah, if the people doing it just kind of had any brains as they did it, it's not a surprise that there's no evidence and they wouldn't get caught. And that's obviously a bit like blackpilling, but I think that's kind of how it is. The cheating part is a lot more extreme because you can't just do that as a one-off person. Like there's something you need for that, especially where the implication from Sean Gare's stuff was that the player or people on Blue Water, when they were playing against his team, Shopify Rebellion, the implication was that they knew where his team was somehow. They somehow had access to some sort of data about where his team were on the map at certain points. Because like part of his video was like his team would move from one side of the map to the other, and then Blue Otter would also do the same, even though they didn't actually have any vision of anything and they didn't use any util that should allow them to know that Shopify had gone from one side to the other. Yet somehow they just did it like psychically. So that kind of thing, having that kind of data. One thing that I found interesting was that one of the partners in Riot's investigation was Grid, and Grid is a company that like provides the betting sites with that kind of live data feed from Riot Games, like Riot's APIs or whatever. So they're kind of like the middlemen that could get this data from Riot and then allow the betting companies to have it so that they can update odds live and pay out bets live, which is like a fine thing. It makes sense that exists. But also, if someone was to be able to cheat in that way, unless either there's like two options. Somehow they've got a direct link within Riot to get access to some of this API stuff somehow and see live feeds. Riot said in their investigation that there was allegations of a rioter being involved, and they kind of shut that off as well. And the only other option I could see is that they I guess there's three, but the second one could be like somehow they've got access to the other team's PCs, which seems even more extreme. Um,
Wow.
I mean, that's one way you could see it, is somehow you could literally see their screen, but I don't know how that would be possible. The other option would be through something like Grid, if you knew someone at Grid and had a backdoor access there, and they could give you the data. But in any case, so two of those things would be companies investigating themselves, kind of like you said, either Riot investigating themselves or Grid investigating themselves. But now I suppose we can only take their word for it. But what's interesting, and this is an update that happened since we last spoke, is that Sean Gares on stream did kind of respond to Riot's investigation, and he doubled down basically. He said that he was like extremely disappointed by it. Actually, so he said, I think this is before he made his video. Just once he'd given the data to Riot, and kind of what he said is that he gave the data to Riot, saw how they were investigating it, and that kind of triggered him to make his video and release it publicly, because he was disgusted and annoyed, to use his words, at how the allegations were being handled. He even said that like he gave the info to Riot and seemed like nothing was happening. He had to escalate it higher up, and then the higher ups didn't even know that he'd given any information and like weren't aware of it.
Wow.
And yeah, he basically has doubled down on it. Like he's adamant that someone was cheating still. He doesn't seem swayed at all in that. And he also says that he's got loads of other information. So this is one of the things that was like a criticism that he had at the time as well. That was like, especially with the cheating allegations, where people thought it was a stretch, a lot of it. And yeah, they kind of, especially like Bob. Like Bob did have a lot of support. She's back on FlyQuest Red as well now, because I know she was like suspended pending their own investigation into all of that. And yeah, I mean, if she hasn't actually done anything, then fair enough. She deserves the support, obviously. Sean Gares doesn't trust that, clearly. But yeah, so that was part of that, was that people were kind of criticizing him, saying that there wasn't really enough evidence against Bob specifically, because she was like one of the main targets. And what was shown in the video really was play by Bob that he thought was questionable, but then any like more hard evidence was just against the.
I remember that. Yeah, I think that was just bad decision making, dude. Like it was a comp game, and you know we've seen people do some pretty stupid stuff. I think that it was not egregious enough to be called a throw by any means. I think that was just a miscall or a misplay, because most of the time Bob like pops off. I think that they're one of the more consistent players.
Yeah.
So
Because
I
also
think
part of his,
yeah, that one was a bit sus.
yeah, because in his video as well, like the actual evidence was more on the fact that people were like the evidence that he has for sure is that people are reaching out to tier 2 players, soliciting them to match fix, and are at least presenting themselves as people that have fixed matches and won loads of money. Like that's the part that seems like nailed on. And yeah, so a lot of criticism around him was like, you know, that stuff is, you know, good that you're leaking it. This other stuff about cheating and about Bob and Blue Otter players, I think there was one other player implicated as well. This stuff is a bit of a stretch, and you know, you haven't really got evidence. It's just what you're seeing in the game and what you're taking off of that. But yeah, what he's then come out and said is like, he has tons more stuff than that. That was just what he chose to release. Not really saying why he would choose that against other stuff. Actually, to be fair, he did say some other stuff that he's got loads of things he could release, but the people, what he's kind of said, I think, is like the people that give him that information would fear for their safety if the information was out there, because it could lead back to them as being the people that leaked it. So kind of like protecting sources essentially. Yeah, it's interesting. He's adamant that it is still going on. He also kind of said the thing of like, you know, Riot wouldn't want this to come out anyway. He said that his viewers have to realise that it's not in the company's best interest for it to be publicly known that there's misconduct happening. So they decided to sweep it under the rug, is what he said. And he said if people knew these things, it would directly affect Riot's bottom line. And he's kind of said like the only way it's ever going to come out in his eyes now is if somebody leaks it somehow, like with the iBuyPower stuff. That
Yeah.
Sundays, and yeah, and he's kind of said like these people that are doing the cheating, they've got big mouths. They'll tell some people eventually. We just kind of have to hope that people do leak it, because that was one of the ones, and it's interesting how it comes back round with the iBuyPower stuff. The reason that it first was thought that that iBuyPower had been match fixing, aside from the fact that they were doing really weird plays, was that Shazam, who was playing Counter-Strike at the time, had some messages leaked where he had told somebody, bet on this, or like, I think he was telling them, like, you should bet on this game because I've heard it's going to be rigged.
Hmm.
And he's like, this is the first time I've heard of it, but I've been told this game is rigged. And then it turned out it obviously was. But even him having, like, those messages being public wasn't enough for iBuyPower to be in trouble because he wasn't connected to it, so it still wasn't hard evidence. But you talk about, like, tier 2 and ranked. I remember his tweet a few weeks ago as well, where talking about the match fixing and just like betting in general, where he tweeted a screenshot where I think he was streaming and had queued up in a ranked game, and then he got a text message from somebody being like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like kind of threatening to dox him and then saying like throw this game basically, and it was like someone that
Wow.
had his phone number. I feel like it said like his address in the message or something crazy like that. I can't remember exactly though, but it was like a threatening text message to his personal phone, telling him he has to throw this ranked game that he's currently streaming. What the heck? What the fuck Riot's supposed to do about that? I'm not really sure, because the issue is the best they can try and do is like they can block betting sites to an extent from having markets on certain things. Like I think they've got some way to be able to say like don't do markets on ranked games, which it seems like an obvious thing. But then the problem is it's just like unregulated sites in like Curacao or whatever, like these like crypto betting sites that need no ID and all that. It's like impossible
Hmm.
to get them to do anything because they're not actually even regulated. Like everyone gets on them on a VPN. They're not really legal. There's no actual
And they're
avenue
in,
to change what they
they're
do.
like based in some weird country with like no laws and stuff. There's
Yeah,
no like education available either if you want to go internationally. Yeah,
exactly.
it's very difficult
And that's
to.
the thing where like they will just do markets on whatever they want. So that's another issue where yeah, they'll do markets on ranked games if they've got a high level player on their side that it is high enough level to queue into some of these big streamers ranked games. Straight away, that's
Mhm.
on their markets. This player can throw it. People can win like crazy money. So it's a bit of a mess. All told. Um, let's move on from that horrible stuff and talk about the horrible teams that got relegated from VCT. uh, we'll go from bad to worse, shall we? Because there are 3 teams relegated this year, and 2/3 of those are in EMEA, which is nice. And maybe just a
I think that
yeah, go on.
isn't Boom and I think
Oh,
there
but
are also like the Pacific teams.
they'll
Boom got
go to
relegated as
Ascension.
well, but
So
they're
I
special
think there are 3
circumstance.
like
Yeah.
3 guaranteed, and then yeah, 1 or 2 maybe going to Ascension. And that I looked like such an idiot the other day because um I somehow I missed it. I think it was during Toronto that Riot did like an update about the whole system and said that the way that you get to Ascension was with the top 8 in playoffs or being top 8 in championship points. And somehow I missed that part, and I thought it was only
Mhm.
playoffs, and I thought Boom were out when they didn't get playoffs, but yeah, I guess fortunately that's not the case. Um, yeah, if these Ascension teams didn't either get to playoffs in stage 2 or have enough points to be in top 8, then they have been relegated immediately, and they won't get to go to Ascension. They won't get to fight
Mhm.
for it. They have to go back to tier 2 next year and try again if they feel like it. Um, so we had in
True.
Americas, you had 2G, which is just nice, like as in terms of like the mirror of G2 at the top and then 2G at the bottom. It is kind of satisfying, however sad it is. And then and then in EMEA, you had Gentamates, and then of course the winless Apex as well,
Oh God.
which is just yeah, it's pretty tragic. What did you make of those teams in general? Was there anything that stood out to you of any of those going down?
I think 2G, even though they got their ass kicked throughout the year, I think that a lot of the Americas teams were very positive about them. And also, I mean, this was a very unexpected winner because I think that for 2 years in a row in America, everybody was voting for M80 to be the winners. I mean, the first year, fair enough, they were up against the guard who is now G2, difficult, fair. Second year, they should have won it, but then 2G comes in, they come into the grand final, they sweep it, and then they go and they get into VCT. So I think they were one of the more surprising teams in VCT, and I think that a lot of the people that they played against said a lot of really good things about them. I think Sentinels also mentioned
Yeah, they
that
scrimmed them
2G
loads,
was
right?
like a very important scrim partner. Yeah, they scrimmed with them 37 times or something. I remember seeing like a Coupland tweet. So I think that yeah, they might not have had the greatest performance, but I think that as such a young team, this is probably the team that I'm judging the least for being relegated because I think that they have a lot of rookies, young kids, and I think that just being able to play in VCT for a year has definitely made all of these very like has developed like them individually as well. So I think that even if like they might not be able to play together as a team in VCT next year, you might see like some LATAM teams try to pick up talent from this team because I think that's pretty good for themselves. So I think this is the team that I will give the least amount of hate to for being relegated because they're like so young and so nascent. And yeah, I mean they did something with their years, so that's pretty good for them. If you jump over to EMEA though, I'm gonna have to be a little bit more harsh about this because okay, look, Gentlemates, bit of a hit or miss, mostly misses. It kind of sucks that they got relegated, but at least they have like a uh I wouldn't even say they have an excuse for it because I feel like they could have performed a little bit better, especially with the player changes and everything. But they were swapping around IGLs. They were doing a couple of things fine. Apex though, I think at least Gentlemates they had a win at some point, which is like more than what you can say for Apex because I was so excited about Apex heading into this year. Okay, like not just because of Florissant, but also because like yeah, this is the opposite of M80. Sure, they took 2 years, but at least they won Ascension at the end of it. It also sucks for Apex, like not to be too harsh on them, but when you think about it, they won Ascension mainly because of the insane performance that Kayak put up. And as soon as you get into VCT, Fnatic's just like, hey, thanks
Yeah,
guys,
and
thanks
now
for
he's
being
like
like our starting
one
trading
of the world's
roster.
best
We're just
players.
gonna yoink him over. Yeah, we're just gonna steal him away. Don't worry about it. We lost Durka, but we got Kayak. And so Apex, like starting off, you're left without your star player. That's painful, but you had a whole year to recover, guys. What were you doing?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this. Like, it feels like the scenario of it. It's almost like different things are in. I feel like there's different interests for different people involved because as an org, you like once you get into VCT, of course your best interest is to stay there, 100%. Um, but then as when you're competing in tier two, I feel like tier two generally is about like should be about like breeding talent and being a stepping stone to tier one. So if you're a tier two org and you can get some of these young talents that get you into tier one, as from a talents perspective, you'd hope to be able to stay there and progress. But then from the org's perspective, actually, it's just do or die immediately, and you need to, like, you
Mhm.
have to perform. There's no like grace period of okay, we can give it 6 months, and then after that, hopefully the players are settled in. No, if you're not doing well in 6 months, you have to make changes because you are desperate to still keep your spot. So it's kind of like it's like conflicting interests. I feel like, and then that's where you get these. I feel like it just doesn't help the teams at all because yeah, teams like Apex come in, no wins in kickoff, make a change, no wins in stage one, and then suddenly, yeah, Fluorescent drops out, who was like the player that it felt like they were kind of building around. Obviously had her issues there, and then
Mhm.
stage two, you've got like a new look team again. You're just praying that they hit the ground running, and whereas the rest of the teams, for the most part, have had 6 months already to synergize. And then, yeah, it's just I just feels like they're just up against it immediately once you're in. I get that's kind of the point. Like it's nice that this league at least has promotion and relegation, but then when you're one of these pro teams, it for me it just seems like so difficult to be able to stay there unless you're. I mean, yeah, like D2, the guards team was obviously just. I don't know. It feels like they were unusually strong. Whereas if you're
Mhm.
like a general tier two team and you're good enough that you can beat the Ascension teams, and then maybe you have to beat like the worst other Ascension team from VCT, and then you're in, but you're just not at the level of the actual VCT teams a lot of the time.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems difficult, and for Apex as well. And yeah,
I
if
think
you don't make playoffs, you play like 11, 12 games for the whole year, like which also just isn't great from the Orbs perspective. I feel like great you're in VCT. I
yeah.
think it's hard to take advantage of it, even if you're a poor performing team. That's fair enough, but then in terms of like building a brand and stuff, I don't know how you even do that. You barely play at all. You're only playing for like 2 months of the year, basically, 2-3 months of the year. So yeah, a bit difficult all around, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that also for all of these Ascension winning teams, there's always like that extra bit of pressure because I think when I was interviewing RB from Nongshim, I think that that was one of Nongshim's major goals, right? To make playoffs just so that, okay, they're above Boom. They don't have to go through that whole Ascension gauntlet again and deal with it because it was, I think I think Ascension by itself is very stressful because you're going to be playing, even though you talk about it like tier 2 versus tier 1, I think that there are like a couple of Ascension teams in each region that can definitely give some VCT teams at least like a good run for their money. Like I'm pretty sure if you look at the bottom half of the VCT board and pull up the best challenger team, odds are that they've probably beaten them in scrims. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure like you can find like that kind of stuff available. So I think that Ascension teams they get a lot of flack. I think it's just that you make all of that fuss about winning Ascension, you stomp out like so many people on your way there, and then you like you aren't able to maintain that same caliber for all the reasons that you mentioned, which I mean, of course, that's fair enough, but also I think it's very disappointing as a fan because you see this team like climb their way through the top through like blood, sweat, and tears, and once they get to the top, they're like, oh yeah, we suck now. So I think that's what like kind of leads to more hate watching, especially when you have a team like G2 in the mix, because this is what an Ascension team should be. You win
Yeah.
Ascension your first year, there's like a screw up with your org, you get picked up by G2, and then since then you're like dominating. Even with the roster changes, dude, like I don't know if you saw the recent G2 match, but it seems like Baby Bay really wants to be on the main roster. Bro's like, yeah, Leaf can play, but I can play too. It seemed like it was like his 2022 phase Baby Bay chamber form. That particular game, it was kind of insane.
I think it's quite funny as well that for G2 to be like the most successful Ascension team, and they didn't have to do any of the work to actually get into Ascension as well.
Just sign
Perfect way
him.
to do it. Exactly. Just walk into a
It kind of worked out, like all of that Carlos drama, like because I remember G2 was supposed to be like
Yeah.
a franchise team in EMEA, and then like the old CEO runs his
No,
mouth,
it
and
was
then
meant.
they
I think
get
it was meant to
screwed,
be in
and
NA, but
it,
they were
it
gonna.
all
But
works
yeah,
out because they have like one of the most successful teams now for basically nothing. They just signed an Ascension team, and boom, like look at where they are now. It kind of worked out in the end.
exactly. None of the hard work. No
I don't know if
scouting.
there's a moral of the story. Yeah, I don't know if there's a moral of a story here. Like, sometimes being a dick online can work out, but I don't know if that's like the right moral to be taking from this, but you take my point.
Yeah. Um. The other thing as well. Like I was kind of thinking about it. Like maybe I'll write something about it at some point. Um. Yeah. Just also as an Ascension team, unless you're like a G2 that's an established org already, then I don't know how you get in and like build a brand. Like with Apex, you felt like when they first came in, people were excited because of Fluorescent. So like that's one avenue you've got is like try and sign somebody that people want to watch. Otherwise, if you just got a bunch of tier 2 players, and especially if you then struggle to stay in the league and you don't do well, no one really cares. I don't think so. There we go. Disappointing all around, but it is what it is. Maybe to round out, since our next episode, if we do another one in 2 weeks, will be after the playoffs have finished for every region. Shall we do a quick go around and pick a winner for each region? Should we start with
I'm
Pacific? That'll
just
be a bit of an
biased
easy one.
here. You know what I'm gonna say, Lee. You don't even have to ask specific. Of course, it's gonna be the dinosaurs coming out on top. Paper X with another trophy this year. Paper X winning champs. Paper X winning it all. That's like those are gonna be my pick'ems. Everybody knows at this point. I'm just a Paper X fan. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, they haven't lost a single match during playoffs. They have had a flawless run. They 2-0 Talon. They made it look like they were just like doing their nails while they were doing it. So yeah, I think Paper X, yeah, just definitely the strongest contender. I would love to see an RRQ win in the final, but if anybody has to be Paper X, because they've really done that lower bracket run. But for me, I think for Pacific it has to be Paper X. I think for EMEA, my favorite team is Fnatic. They have been looking a little bit shaky with just one loss. By Fnatic standards, that's a bit
Yeah.
bad. Having watched them for so long. But I think that EMEA definitely has a little bit more competition. I think that Giant X could be a dark horse here because I think that they've been looking incredibly consistent in this stage. But yeah, I think for me it would have to be between Fnatic and Heretics because
Yeah.
I'm a Veggie Fishy fangirl and I'm a Fnatic fangirl. So I think that's gonna be the grand final and Fnatic wins it like 3-2 in overtime or something.
Yeah.
That would be like my prediction for it. I
Yeah.
might be
I think
completely wrong here.
I'd probably agree. I think I'd my vitality bias would end at this point, and I'd probably give it Fnatic. I think. Yeah, but yeah, I think they're more
If I
heretics.
want a team to win, if I want a team to win, it has to be KC, surprisingly, because after talking to Zahk, I was like, you know what, this guy deserves another trophy. But I think it's probably gonna be Fnatic.
Yeah, it would be nice for Casey to get there. For them to get to champs, basically. I think is kind of something
Yeah,
that all
exactly.
the neutrals want to see. Just so, it's literally in their stadium, and they might not be there. So yeah, it would be nice if they get there. But winner for me probably Fnatic.
It will be it's if you think about it though, it's so funny because the only confirmed French representative at Valorant Champions Paris so far is the coach of Paper X, who is a Pacific team. It is so funny to me.
And I remember, wasn't it? I think it was at Madrid. Like he was kind of asked about it, like being an EU representative, and he was kind of like, "Yeah, I guess. Like technically, I'm French, but I don't really feel French, so
He
whatever."
might be he might be French by birth, but at this point he sounds Singaporean as fuck.
Yeah,
So he's like, honorary
that's basically
honorary
what he said. He's
Frenchman at
like,
this
"Yeah,
point.
as far as I'm concerned, I'm from Singapore. Like, I guess I have French family, so that's nice that people support me for that." Um, but yeah, maybe China then. Who's winning China? I don't really watch any of China, so I'm kind of lost. I see EDG are in
Well,
the
I
lower
mean,
bracket.
yeah, I was gonna say that it's been a bit of a rough time for EDG in stage two. I think with the map changes and everything, uh, they've been kind of struggling this year. But they did win their first game in the lower bracket, so it's not like over for them. I would love to see them, but I think in terms of winning, I honestly have no idea because every single team has been like it's like you're rolling the dice when you're watching VCT China. You're like, yeah, this team won 3 times against this team before, but they're gonna get 2-0 right now because God knows what the fuck is happening in the game. So I feel like it's just a kind of like dice throw kind of thing. China is very fun to watch in terms of like there being no clear favorites at all to root for. Like it's just who plays better the day
Yeah.
off. So I think yeah, but if I had to pick a winner, I'll probably pick Billy because I'm still like a fan of them from what they did to NRG 2 years ago. So I'd probably just go and say Billy, but honestly, like I wouldn't bank on it. It could be anybody at this point.
Yeah. Once my beloved Wolverhampton Wanderers were out of contention, I didn't know what to
Oh,
think after that. Um, I
they
will go
still have
Billy
a
Billy
chance
then. I
at
trust you.
champs, though.
Yeah, true.
No,
Good
no, no,
chance.
don't trust me. Don't take my word for it. But I would just like them to win because I would
I
like to
will
see
trust
another
you.
Billy Billy
My
gaming
money is on
upset.
BLG, and if I lose
I
it,
will,
it's your fault.
I would love to see another BLG upset at champs just like 2 years ago. That would be wild. That's the only reason I'm voting for them. I'll be real.
Last one then,
And
Americas.
Sentinels are G2. I'm just gonna go towards G2, just because I think that uh, I'm kind of cheering for Baby Bay's arc, like comeback arc. You start off as a star duelist, you get into broadcasting, you make your comeback for the most epic team in Americas, and you just like you start slotting in. I would love to see G2 lift a trophy with Baby Bay, but yeah, I think that one more team that could be a wild card is NRG because I know they were completely shit for the rest of the year, but they've been looking good heading into stage two. So I'm kind of hoping that we get to see like kind of a old NRG comeback, but I think it's probably gonna be Sentinels or G2 with a slight
Yeah.
bias towards G2. But what do you think?
Um, I would maybe give the slight bias to Sentinels, mainly based on like the one time they played already, and Sentinels won it. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of my basis
True.
really. Um, yeah, maybe 100 Thieves a dark horse as well. They were looking better.
True, true.
So we'll see. But yeah, I would imagine it's between G2 and Sentinels as well. To be fair, has it? I don't know if there's been nothing still about Leaf, has there? Like, I know there was like kind of rumors, or they were like hinting at maybe bringing him back. I don't know if that was just like
I think
trolling.
I think somebody mentioned, somebody like the manager. I don't remember who wrote this, but somebody mentioned that you would probably be coming in for Chomps. But yeah, there's been
Right.
no official confirmation yet
Yeah.
because Baby Bay was just supposed to be there for stage 2 as like a 6 player slash sub or something. So
Yeah.
I would like to have Leaf back, but in a world where Leaf doesn't come back, touch wood, honestly, Baby Bay has been really impressing me. The first game I was like, yo, bro looks a bit washed, but he's back in form now.
I mean,
I think
to
that
be
last
fair,
game was a pretty big testament.
yeah, it would at least make sense to keep him for the rest of the playoffs at the very least. Like even if Leaf could come back now,
100%,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I don't think it makes sense to make a change at this point anyway. But there we go. So we'll go
Mm-hmm.
G2 and Sentinels. I'm gonna Google flip a coin to see who we're actually gonna go with. Heads or tails for G2?
Tails.
It was tails. G2 is gonna win it then. That's our official prediction. There we go.
I usually go for heads, but I felt like it was a tails kind of day today. I guess
Nice.
RNG just likes me. Anyway.
There we
Yeah,
go.
G2 winning. I wouldn't mind seeing G2 getting another trophy. I was actually doing some analysis about this, like why the heck G2 and Sen are just so much better than everybody else. And I looked at so many stats, like opening kills, second, and like Eve and Jogamo, all of these guys pop off. You look at like clutches, you've got like Bang just being like an absolute beast in the clutch. He has a 29% clutch rate this year in his role. So it's kind of wild that you consistently have like players like this who are able to perform in these kind of difficult situations. And even if you look at the scoreboard, right, like you consistently have like at least 2 or 3 players from these teams up there in terms of ACS and frags and stuff like that. So I think that every single metric that counts, it's just G2 and Sentinels being like so much of a cut above the rest. You in like other regions as well, you see like some of these stats, like players have the superiority. Like, Kayak is really great in terms of those entry kills that we were talking about, or, the same with the clutch consistency for Forsaken or even like Davai. But I think that G2 and Sen are one of the few teams like globally that have all of these like consistently happening in the same place and different players popping up for these stats. So I think that kind of like makes them very interesting to look at in terms of favorites for Americas, but also for champs in general, assuming that they don't like shit the bed.
Yep. Cool. Well, I think that's it for this week then. Let's see how well our predictions turn out, and we'll do a check back in 2 weeks and see how wrong or how right we were.
Yeah, hopefully Paper Rex doesn't disappoint me. But hey, they already made top 2. They can't. They're their first or second, so
And they're in champs.
I can't
That's
be
the
too
most important
disappointed.
thing at the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a bad thing. I think they were the first team to qualify as well for champs. But
yeah.
who do you think is? I know we're a little bit ahead, but right now, having watched all of the different leagues, if you had to have like a favorite for champs winners, who would it be, Lee?
I think it is Paper X. Like, given that they won Toronto
Yes, we are.
and then they kept their form going into stage 2. I don't
And they've
see a
got the
reason to
Viva
think anyone
France
else at the
buff.
moment. What do you say?
I agree with you. They've got the France buff as well, like with their coach.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
and I think I mean, of course, Paper Rex is always a favorite home team. Like I remember being at Madrid, and there was like a Paper Rex fan club for their game against Heretics, which is insane because this was happening in Spain. And yeah, so, uh, but I was one of them. We had like a flag and stuff. It was pretty fun. But
Yeah, them and
um,
Sentinels were
I think
both
that
favourites.
they're both favorites, yeah. But yeah, I think that having a French person on their team is definitely gonna give them the home energy buff. You can call it that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing like how Champs plays out
Yeah.
this year.
Right then, let's leave it there. Thanks
Mhm.
for the chat as always, Zach. Thanks for everybody that watched and
Thank you.
listened, and yeah, do all the usual liking, following, and we will see you. I'll see you next week,
Subscribing.
and the two of us will see you in 2 weeks. And there we go. Thanks very much, everyone. Catch you then. See ya.